when I arrived at my base in Pretoria, I was a club. We were all clubs. And moving from weapons phase, drill phase, we became hammers. And then when I went through PT phase, they made us a scalpel. I became a scalpel. Through difficulties, through discipline, through routine, through reinforcement, through stress, physical stress, emotional stress. We went from useless individuals to honed, committed young soldiers. And that's what the Army taught me, well, the Air Force in my case. And we've got to go back to realize, to recognize those attributes. Because through the rest of my life, they have come and they've contributed. And they've pulled me out of a lot of difficult situations. Like when I got married, when I left the Army. I had 2 marriages. One was 10 years. I wasn't prepared for that. The second one, I was a little bit more prepared because the discipline, the strength, the fortitude of pushing through made it that much more worthwhile. And now my second stint of marriage is 21 years this year. I've got 2 beautiful daughters from the first marriage, and they're contributing around the world now. But nothing really prepared me for the dark arts of womanhood, the dark arts of woman. It's a wonderful thing to be married, but it's a totally different thing to understand your enemy and the balance between your enemy and your loved one. When I was in the Army, we knew who our enemy was. We knew we could see them. We knew when they were coming. Sometimes we didn't, but we were prepared. In a marriage situation, it's a little bit more different. But the skills of the Army taught me discipline, focus, push through. Many times we used to speak to the Domini in the Army. He used to give us advice. And I think in the same way, some advice from very good friends of mine have contributed to the success of my second marriage. When I lost my business and I sat at home for 8 months, struggling, fighting depression, there was this fight between the reality of who I was. I've got an MBA. I had an MBA in the business. The business didn't make it. And the strength that I could glean from the Army was you push through those difficult times. When you're tired and you've got inspection the next day and you work through the whole night, and your corporal comes in and the sergeant comes in and he just tosses everything out the way, and you've worked for like 6 hours the whole night, got maybe an hour's sleep. It builds up a strength. It built up for me a strength in my heart, my spirit, my mind. So when I was sitting at home struggling and fighting with self-doubt, with fear, I got back into the routine, got up in the morning, made my bed, made my coffee, sat and prayed. And I did that for 8 months. Sent my CVs out, and it was just a quiet time in my life. But one thing I do realize is there's 2 constants in my life. One is the discipline that was instilled in me in the Army through my national service. That's a constant. That made such a big impression on me as an 18, 19-year-old. That I can just build on. And second of all was God, my God. You might believe in something else, but there is that second constant in my life who, if I didn't have God, I would have been in a lot more trouble. I remember the first week in basics. I'm a banana boy. I come from KwaZulu-Natal, I did at that time, and I went to Pretoria, and I was lying under 6 blankets. It was freezing at night. I hadn't showered for 3 days. It was so cold. I remember thinking, I'm going to crack. There's no ways I'm going to make this physically, mentally. And I remember a song came into my head was, Jesus, take me as I am. I can come no other way. And I remember singing that in my mind. An incredible peace came over me. And that night I slept the best I've ever slept in the 18 years that I'd been alive. But back to the business, the loss of the business. Around about 8 months, an opportunity came. And I had to start again. I had to start as a club. The opportunity came. I had to learn from a 22-year-old in a lab, in an occupational lab. I had all these skills, this experience from my side. But I knew that I could, with the skills that I had, I could be adaptable. I could pivot. I could make it work. The Lighties taught me certain technical skills in this new environment that I was in. And I could contribute a little bit into their lives so that they wouldn't cock up their personal lives. Because there's a level, no matter where you are, there's a level of experience, a level of skill, a level of knowing what you know. And for youngsters, it's important for us now. I don't have a rifle anymore. I'm not in a border war. My observation post is now not on the Limpopo, but it's here in my circle. It's here in my community. And growing from that again, I became a hammer again, and then I became a scalpel again, to the point where I have a job in software. I'm an industrial engineer, but the tech world is changing so quickly. And am I relevant? How do I face the internal struggles that I have as a 55-year-old? How do I keep my own peace when these kids around me are talking tech stuff that goes straight over my head? I default back to the skills that the army gave me. Discipline, routine, strength. And it's that experience that helps me adapt to these situations. You know, when we were on the border, when I was on the Limpopo, and I know some of you guys might not class it as the border, but the budgies, the Air Force boys, that was as close as I got. At Madimba, we dug trenches, slept in the rain, in the trench. A month later, we were marching in blues. So we were men of the soil. So we know how to work with our hands. So I lost my business. Yeah, struggled a little bit with depression, got through it with the discipline. But I knew that's what the army taught us. If I could dig a trench, I could carry a toolbox. I could climb a chimney stack. I could start testing occupational diseases. I could start learning new skills again. Coupled with the skills that I'd learned has put me in the place now where, how do we adapt as older guys to the fast changing world? This country is not the same that we fought for, but it's not our battleground anymore. Our battleground is different. Sometimes we can't see our enemy. I understand that there's protection and we need to protect ourselves. We need to keep ourselves covered in our homes and all that kind of stuff. But I'm talking about the way that we relate to our situations as older guys. For many of us, we feel marginalized, left behind, mainly because the country is really struggling through a number of issues. But I don't want to focus on that today. I want to focus on the skills that you and I have, that you guys have, which came out of your national service or your PF or your army days, your defense force days. It allows us to pivot and not be irrelevant. One of the guys on a Facebook group that I'm on, he mentioned that they struggled with their son. He struggled with his son because he was cooked. The army cooked a lot of us oaks in the head. And my point is, how do you not become cooked? But to recover from that. Because and he was open and honest, and I said to him, you might be cooked, but you're not irrelevant. Because him, like many others, we can actually say that we're victims of this country's potential struggles and potential demise through its struggles. But no, we've gone from victims that some people claim to be to survivors and then overcomers and now contributors. Because who can we contribute to? What is our new war? Our new war is family, is our kids. How many of them are snowflakes? Our grandkids. Our grandkids are the only ones that are going to, this generation that's going to grow up with artificial intelligence, poking them at school, preschool. This is our new parade ground. This is our new battleground. We are not irrelevant. Our kids, our grandkids need stability through the strength that we have, through the discipline that we learned in the Defence Force. Boys, not one of you are irrelevant. In actual fact, we are more relevant today because of the lack of discipline, because of the social media, because of the intangible war that these kids are being exposed to. We need to teach them the discipline that we had. And many times it's just being there as a dad, as a grandfather. And I know it's a struggle. I struggled with my dad too. But since he's passed on, there wouldn't be I would love to spend some more time with him. Let's not let that happen between our sons and our grandkids. There's a lot of strength that we can show and give back to this country directly to our kids, to our family, to our grandkids, which will then hopefully impact this country and the rest of the world.